Everything happens for a reason. I just did a video, and what I did was I read it wrong. It's fine though, I explained things a certain kind of way. Should I delete the video or continue with this one? Whatever, I'm not going to delete the video. I'm actually going to proceed and just basically publicly go around my conversation. It is the furthest thing from you. I don't know if that comes out differently, but here we go. Right click, restore, naturally, because I jumped in and I fucking deleted it the minute I looked at it. Now, the video is the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing emotionally from you. And I got to a good point at the end of the previous video. But the previous video was the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing from your context. Now, writing about owners of entities. Here, what I did was I wrote context for me to understand the context of this. And what happened is, for my mind to try to make sense of this, what it did was it connected my research with owners of entities because I'm building a platform for them. And it connected my own experiences with operating entities. And I explained them in the previous video because what I did, I'm going to call this video 506.1. Anyways, so the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing emotionally from you. I basically, my mind twisted it and tried to connect this in a way, and it went back to family. But now that I read the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing from you, note context is written for me to understand how I got this. It wasn't a part, context was not a part of this sentence. So since it's not a part of the sentence, I can't really like use it, or at the very least, I can't use it as a part of the explanation. So what I was trying to write about owners of entities, what happened was I was researching them and I was remembering myself as an owner. And so it doesn't shy away from things. It's just a lot more. It doesn't shy away from things from a personal level, but it is a lot more not interactive, explanatory when it comes to business. Let me try to explain this. We're emotional beings, right? 90% of people, well, the Pareto law always explains that 20% of people do most of the work, 80% of people don't. It beautifully applies everywhere that describes how life is balanced the way it is right now, or at the very least, how life is balanced when it comes to us. One leader, many followers, you know, that kind of like thinking, that kind of approach, that kind of processing, right? So for me, on a personal note, there is a lot of history with me being an emotional owner. And I did a lot of things to kind of like consciously and unconsciously to avoid the real conversation. And what does real mean? Real means honest, you, truth. So here, the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing emotionally from you. Why? Because like that's a distraction, isn't it? When you're loud, whatever you're loud about is a distraction from the truth, from the reality. And when I was interviewing owners of entities, I noticed it. I realized that I basically, my mind in the previous video took me to a conversation with a family member, which was fun because I saw how they got frustrated, or at the very least, how they got, I just want to say, loud and emotional. And they used that to shy away from the original topic. This is the same thing, but I'm reflecting on how I basically never took responsibility because I never accepted my own, right? Like the furthest thing emotionally from me. Like I'm being loud about shit that is not really emotionally relevant. Because the things that are emotionally relevant, I'm too much of a coward to actually, I was too much of a coward actually to interact with, to engage with, to get over. So عندنا نحن شو? Sorry, I spoke in Arabic for a bit. So what do we have? We basically have now two understandings of how our human nature can take over, or how our human nature can just revert back to certain dynamics that protects itself. Fight, flight, or freeze. This one here, the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing emotionally from you, is a flight response. You're fleeing from the truth. Earlier, I was thinking about it as a fight response in the previous video. But the truth is, I am fleeing from something that is emotionally relevant and masking my conversation or my discussion or my argument in a very basically loud, maybe articulate manner, just like all these facial expressions or just hand gestures or something. Just so kind of like remove focus from the thing that's actually like messed up or the thing that actually needs attention. I don't know if that could be triggered. Of course, it's triggered through questions or conversation, but I don't know if that's triggered consciously or unconsciously normally. But by the people that are interacting with you, I think the pros trigger it consciously because they actually would want. I was reading a book called The Motive last month, and it made me understand how people could be careful while approaching others, because how they get resistance and no resistance and like emotional responses and all these kind of like things. And weirdly so, it's just that really that people that don't have this awareness about themselves are not really unhealthy mentally or something like this. But that's basically like a loop. We create these loops. And that's what maybe we create consciously or unconsciously. We kind of create these loops that find a way to rid us of energy that's to be expended. So that's basically, I think, our mind creating an efficient process in order to get through something. Get through something is not get over something. Get through something because, like, if every day we're gonna have to do this, then let's do this the best way possible, or the most efficient way possible is when it comes to energy. But efficiency when it comes to consumption of energy versus efficiency when it comes to end results. And here, writing about owners of entities, it's because like most of the time we're efficient in doing stuff within the actual work. But when it comes to like making different decisions and changing and connecting to different things, we don't. And that's probably what motivated me to write this, because ultimately what I'm trying to build is so that they don't have to worry about that kind of efficiency. All they have to worry about is just them being efficient and how they spend their energy at work, and then them not actually like when they go home or go anywhere outside of work, they don't have to consume that energy as well. And anyone who has had a business before or tried to start a business or knows when your mind is always thinking about it and when you're worrying about stuff, that kind of like takes you from yourself, man, and exhausts the fuck out of you. So maybe this is more of an observation that I had when it comes to like the issues that we face on a day-to-day basis and how we tend to kind of like project them into things that are not emotionally relevant to why they exist in our lives. Because ultimately we distract the Alan Watts says it beautifully. The smarter you are, the smarter you are to fool, because you're going to be the easiest person to fool. You're you're going to fool yourself first. And the smarter you are, the smarter you get at fooling yourself. That's basically the whole point of humility. I know nothing, I know nothing, I know nothing. Because the minute you kind of like feel smart, that's the arrogance or the ego. And I feel this is like a beautiful way for me to kind of like look at how my actual, whatever I'm working on, or my platform that I'm working on. I keep saying whatever I'm working on. I don't know why I say that. Maybe because I've never properly like talked about it. But I think after like 3 months, it'll be done enough for me to kind of like show it to you guys or something. It'll be fun. So yeah, the loudest thing you're arguing is probably the furthest thing emotionally from you. And it probably shows us how we actually tend to distract ourselves from things. And sometimes we don't really have to like focus on them. We just kind of like have to do our thing and have something else take care of it. And we don't have to be strong enough to create those systems. Life could still be beautiful just because we decided to like trust something else, someone else. It's a video, yeah. 506.2.1.